first of all, I think for the people who are really seeking, right, I would say to really just kind of put down agendas, right? Put down whether it's a personal agenda, an organizational agenda, and really just kind of open your heart, open your mind, and listen, right? I would say to consider the evidence, right? Weigh the evidence, which we should be doing anyway. And then for those of us who are in the faith, take the opportunity to, enrich your faith, right? For me, again, as somebody who grew up in the church, rooted in scripture, I felt like this helped me to root my faith in history, right? And in knowing the people and the heritage that came before me, right? Hearing about some of the African scholars, hearing about, the African martyrs, right? People who were crucified, and persecuted for the faith, for reading the same scriptures as me. Like, this really helped to root my history, and it really helped to connect a lot of the dots.
What's up, everyone? Lisa Fields here, and I'm so excited about our new curriculum, Courageous Conversations. You heard about our popular conference, Courageous Conversations, where we invite the leading pastors, thought leaders, and scholars from conservative and progressive backgrounds for conversations. But we not only want to have those conversations on stage at the conference, but we want you to have them in your everyday life. So we developed a curriculum for you to do just that. Courageous Conversations curriculum, the tools you need for the conversations in culture. You can get that today on Amazon or on our website at jude3project.org. Well, thank you for watching another episode of the Jude 3 Project podcast. As always, I'm Lisa, the founder of the Jude 3 Project, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Christopher LaMark. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. This is nice. It's a G3 spot. I can't wait. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me on here. Let our audience know just a little bit about yourself before we get into your role in the film.
Yeah, sure. I am a writer, director, and cinematographer. I run a production company out here in Houston called Cross Culture Studios. I actually graduated from the University of Houston with a degree in media production. Funny, it's like in art, it's like if you have a degree, everybody's like, okay, yeah, you got a degree, great. But I got it, and my parents are very glad that I got that degree. So, shortly after, I moved out to Los Angeles, started acting, got on some television shows, had some fun with that, and then transitioned to behind the camera where I started writing and kind of curating my own work. As a director, I've had an opportunity to work with some unique actors, music videos, short films, feature films, documentaries. And I just want to do that, keep creating work and visual, expressions that can, be an extension of my faith, encourage people, challenge people. Really just, hopefully last a lifetime. So.
Dope. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you over these last few years.
Yeah.
We keep getting a lot of feedback, a good positive feedback from the film Unspoken, which really Chris was the catalyst for several years ago. So I met Chris really from a cold email. So let nobody tell you that cold emails don't work.
That's right. They do work. I had my concerns. I was Chris, like, she ain't gonna read this thing, but you responded quick.
So Chris reached out to me several years ago because he had the idea for a documentary, because he had been following Jude 3 and the different scholars that we've had on there. And I responded to him quickly, but it was quickly like, no, we can't do this. I mean, it would be great, but I don't have the money to do it. And then, y'all already saw the episode. If you haven't, go back to how Don came in the picture with the finances to do this film. But Chris was also willing to do the production for free, which was still something we couldn't do because as we've discovered through this process, it's a lot more expensive than we could have ever imagined.
True. Very, very true.
So Chris, tell them, our audience, what kind of inspired you to want to do a documentary like Unspoken?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like this has really been a long time coming. I had heard of the objection that Christianity was, a white man's religion, Western European religion before, but quite honestly, I dismissed it. I dismissed that notion because I thought it was, foolish. Until someone, really close to me in my life kind of brought this objection to me, and I feel like it kind of hit me where it's like, we can't really be the hands and feet of change unless if we keep dismissing other people's concerns, right? No matter how non-scholarly I think it is, no matter how ridiculous I think it is, if a person has a concern, then we really need to address that, right? And so this person brought that concern to me, started asking me questions. I felt like I was able to answer some of the questions, but as we began to go deeper and deeper, I didn't really have what I would say good answers. You know what I mean? And so started doing research. A lot of that research led me to Jude 3 and all the work that you were doing and still are doing. And as I was trying to find answers for this one particular individual, I felt like I was getting answers for myself, right? And this is somebody who grew up in the church, And so it just made sense that, if this was helping me in this way, in this capacity, it was going to help somebody else. And so I immediately thought this has to be a documentary. Like somebody ought to turn this into a documentary. And usually when you say somebody ought to do fill in the blank, that somebody's probably you, right? So I knew I had the skills and to do it, and reached out to you. You reached out to Don, and and here we are today.
Yeah. So, Unspoken, what was your favorite part about making the film?
Ooh, my favorite part about making the film. There were a lot. I would say my favorite experience about making the film was really just traveling and getting to have a front row seat to all of these, amazing minds. You know what I mean? To be able to, hear Dr. Bantu, Dr. Mason, Catherine Gerbner, David Daniels, Will Hyde, the list goes on and on. To be able to go to places like the Armstrong Browning Library, and just all the traveling and learning that we did, I would say that that not only was my favorite experience, but had an indelible impact on my life, and on my faith.
That's awesome. Now, one thing we've gotten several compliments off of, I mean, that's a consistent, is that the film is so well done from a cinematography standpoint. Obviously, the information is good, but information put in a nice package is even better. And so, I mean, it would not be the quality it was if it had not been for you. That is 100% on you, the quality, the angles, and all of that. Kind of tell our audience a little bit about the importance of that, because I think, sometimes we think about information. It's just like food.
Yeah.
If you have a good meal, it's good food, but the presentation is off, it's going to kind of throw it off.
Right.
So it's great to have scholars, but the excellence of the presentation adds to, I think, the total package of the film. Just talk a little bit about that, because I mean, Latasha Morrison was talking about how excellently this is done, from the angles, all the cinematography, and that's a constant thing that I hear from a lot of people. Just talk a little bit about why that's so important as from your expertise as a cinematographer.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, and thank God. I'm glad that it came out. I felt like you and Don kind of you left a lot of space and a lot of creative freedom for me to kind of do the things that I wanted to do. I feel like I remember on one of the shoots, some of the people in it, when I was setting up a shot and a profile shot, and some people kind of looking at the camera like, is the camera going to be over there? Am I supposed, it just wasn't very traditional, right? But I was looking to really try to create, when I think about Unspoken and what the scholars were talking about, it was unique and bold. And I felt like we had to create a look that was also unique and bold and kind of spoke that same language. And so that's why you see kind of some of those angles. The biggest thing was I was trying to make, instead of this just being a documentary, right? I wanted to make it an experience, right? To really set the tone. You mentioned, cinematography and bringing that, to to whatever project that you're working on. For me as an artist, I try to find myself in the work and see what I can do to contribute to the work. And so, yeah, just trying to find, like I said, unique angles that could speak the same language, and be memorable, that people not only, subconsciously may be thinking about some of those shots. They walk away and they think, man, I heard such impactful, content, but I also felt a certain way, right? And so just try to deliver a certain feeling that can move people to action with the visuals.
And I love that the film starts off with the objections. So it's essentially, it pulls people in from the gate, that we show people at the beginning that we understand where you're coming from.
For sure.
Why do you think that's so important in the film, just to start off that way? Because we could have started off a number of ways. I mean, you could have started off different ways. You could have just went into, presenting the facts.
Right.
But why was it important to start off that way?
Right. So I brought a lot of my experiences to this film, right? And so when I heard the objection, I immediately thought, why would anybody think that Christianity is a white man's religion, right? And so when I brought this objection to other people, they said the same thing. Like, why would anybody, obviously they were Christians, they said, why would anybody think that Christianity is a white man's religion, right? So I felt like it was important to lead with, the objections. And you too, I mean, we kind of sat down and brainstorming. I think that, you and Don, we also kind of came to the same understanding that this was a good place to start. I also feel like, when you're talking about certain church spaces, certain church spaces who might not quite understand this objection, I think they need to see that, right? And I think they need to know why people feel the way they feel. So we led off with the objection, hopefully try to, kind of build it, build the intensity of it in that first part of the film.
For you, as you were navigating this and listening to the interviews, what were some of the most impactful facts that you didn't know that kind of opened you up in a whole new way of understanding the faith?
There were a number of them. I would say, when I heard about Dr. Vince Bantu's mentioning of a lot of the scholars, the ancient African scholars that were not from North Africa, right? When he talked about Estephanos, right? And he talked about the Reformation, right? And he links that to the Reformation, how it actually started around the 1400s, before, a century before it ever even made it to, Europe and to Martin Luther. I thought that was impactful. Hearing about the transatlantic slave trade versus the trans-Saharan slave trade, right? And how long the trans-Saharan slave trade was in comparison to the transatlantic slave trade. It was minuscule, right? But then, the most, I would say what landed with me the most was, slavery. And I think it's just because slavery is one of those things that, I don't know, I feel like it kind of pulls at your heart a little bit, when you see, people of African descent abused, mentally, physically, verbally, sexually. I mean, every way that you can think of. And I feel like that's one of the objections that people really take hold of. And so, hearing Dr. Catherine Gerbner and Damon Richardson and Adam Coleman kind of go into what was really going on during that time, during Christian slavery, hearing about, what she calls Protestant supremacy, right? And it was, kind of only Christianity was, at a certain point for them was exclusively for, white people, right? So hearing that was really had a huge impact on me and kind of changed the way I thought about that.
No, I think that's helpful. And I agree, especially about the sub-Saharan slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade. I did not know that before this film.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I think is going to be so impactful to a generation with this film, is because you don't have to go to seminary or to get this information. And for those of us who went to seminary, we didn't get this information there. So we're bringing a whole new level of education that when you leave this film and when you leave the curriculum, you're like equipped
Yeah.
to engage people.
Yeah. Somebody
Do you
actually,
want to share any?
yeah, for sure. Somebody actually thought that I was seminary trained because of kind of the way I was talking about it, which I'm not, right? But to your point, it's just all of the information, it's like information overload, you know what I mean? And so,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and the information, it makes people go back. So I've been seeing in the comments somebody said like, I've watched this film 3 times already. You know,
Wow.
in addition to that, I watched it, but then I paused it as I was going because I was taking notes as I was going.
Yeah.
Like, and so that speaks to what you're saying. Like, you don't, when you get it, it makes you feel like you just sat through a whole degree program.
Yeah.
That you're now equipped to share this information with others. And it gives you that confidence, because half the battle in conversation around these topics of is Christianity white man's religion is the lack of confidence because of the lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have the knowledge, you have a level of confidence
Mm-hmm.
in the knowledge. And so now you're able to come into the conversation knowing like, I understand why you feel this way.
Right.
But I also, what I do also love about how you package the film, we don't end it just giving information.
Mm-hmm.
We present that this information is to lead you to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the information is not the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
It is just the instrument to get you to the Savior of the world.
That's right.
And so, just share a little bit about that, because I think your heart for lost people is something that shouldn't be lost in this project. Right? That you did this not just to get information to people, but also that they would come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ.
Right.
So share just a little bit about your heart for that.
Yeah. I think back to that original conversation, and I thought about what I was trying to achieve by having this back and forth dialogue with this individual. And at the foundation of it, it was really so that this person would come to Christ, right? Like, whatever we're talking about is a huge hurdle and barrier between him and accepting Jesus. And so I knew that in the film, it's present the information, but it's not just to fill your head up with a bunch of knowledge, right? It is to lead to the gospel and to point to salvation. And so, I think that's hugely important. That's why I said I was willing to do it for free because I felt like, this is something that has to happen. In a lot of ways, Lisa, I felt more than wanting to do the project. I felt like I had to do the project. Like, I felt like it was an obligation, right? As a follower of Christ, and someone who, has the skills to be able to do it. I felt like this is something that I have to do, like, by any means, So that was why I was like, well, don't worry about it. We'll shoot it anyway. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, the overall goal is to see people saved. That's the overall goal.
Yeah. And I commend you for that. And that doesn't mean that if you call Chris now that he's going to do your project.
Right.
Just going to put that out there.
Right. Exactly.
You're going to have to pay him.
Here they come. Yeah. Like Lisa said, it takes a lot of resources, right?
Yeah, a lot of time. And time is money.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're going to have to pay him for his time.
Right,
Tell our audience just a little bit about Cross Cultural Studios, because that is the heart of, obviously it's a business, but you do film to see people, and this is just my kind of thought on it, to see a more of maybe a Christian ethic or a Christian worldview through film. Is that a right assessment?
Yeah, I think that is a right assessment. Cross Culture Studios, is I would say that the work is influenced by our faith, right? So I don't know if I would
Mm-hmm.
necessarily put it in that box of Christian film, because you know what happens when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it goes over in
Yeah.
that
All
little,
Christian films
yeah,
become very, very corny.
exactly, right. So, but I would say it's influenced by my faith. Maybe, you know, to some degree, you can tell, like in Unspoken, you can obviously tell, right? But then sometimes
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's a little more subtle. But I really try to, like I was saying earlier, try to write and create films that people can see themselves in, right? That reflect
Mm-hmm.
kind of this human experience, you know, as sojourners here on Earth. Trying to, yeah, really like pull down that mountain of entertainment um, with something that reflects values that, you know, we can all be proud of, values that last a long time. Yeah, and really try to motivate and encourage and inspire and entertain, you know, at the same time. So, yeah, that's a little about Cross
Mm-hmm.
Culture Studios. Been doing it for probably about, I would say 10 to 12 years. Started in
Mm-hmm.
California, brought it to Houston, and yeah, been doing it ever since. So,
And you have a small film with Cross Cultural Studios. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
the
A
the
short film.
short film,
I'm
oh
sorry.
yeah, the short
Yeah.
film Shine. Yeah, we released that back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Shine is really about an athlete who experiences an injury, thinks it's going to kind of end
Mm-hmm.
his, you know, career, and I'll just say he ends up getting motivation and influenced by an unexpected hospital guest, and it was actually Shine. Don, our executive producer, I think you pitched me to him, and he wanted to see some of my work, and he watched Shine, and he was like, okay, yeah, this is our guy. So I I don't know, like sometimes you make things you're like, man, I don't think really, you know, it's gonna kind of have the impact that I'm looking for, but I probably wouldn't be sitting
Mm-hmm.
here had it not been for that. So
Yeah, that's a very good point because we think sometimes things don't go exactly how we want them to go,
uh-huh.
or projects don't go exactly how we want them to go, or as wide or as far as we want them to go. But you don't know, like you said, if it's a catalyst to something else that's going to be greater. That and then you make him redo Shine, well not redo it, but as your platform continues to rise, re-release it,
Yeah,
and then it still has the
right,
the impact. And
right,
so you just never know
exactly.
how God uses things and works it all together. So it's very cool to see it all come
Yeah,
together. What do you want people to walk away from with this film? So two parts. What do you want skeptics to walk away from with this film, and what do you want Christians to walk away from
yeah, good question.
with the film?
Yeah, for skeptics, I would say, you know, really just to first of all, I think for the people who are really seeking, right, I would say to
Mm-hmm.
really just kind of put down agendas, right? Put down
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a personal agenda, an organizational agenda, and really just kind of open your heart, open your mind, and listen, right? I would say to consider the evidence, right? Weigh the evidence,
Mm-hmm.
which we should be doing anyway, right? To
Mm-hmm.
weigh the evidence, like I said, put down agendas and really hear what we have to say. Um, if they were to do that, then I think there's no way they could walk away thinking that Christianity is a white man's religion. I think, and I'll get to the other one, but I remember you were speaking at, I think at Benedict College, and by the time the conference was over, you said, if you're going to object to Christianity, don't do it because of this. Like, choose something else. And I agree with that, right? When you weigh the evidence, there's no way you could think that. And then for those of us who are in the faith, I mean, I would say that, you know, take the opportunity to, you know, enrich your faith, right? For me, again, as somebody who grew up in the church, rooted in scripture, I felt like this helped me to root my faith in history, right? And in knowing the
Mm-hmm.
people and the heritage that came before me, right? Hearing about some of the African scholars, hearing about, you know, the African martyrs, right? People
Mm-hmm.
who were crucified, you know, and persecuted for the faith, for reading the same scriptures as me. Like, this really helped to root my history, and it really helped to connect a lot of the dots, right? And so I think for people who
Mm-hmm.
are in the faith, to take that opportunity and learn about the people, the places, the events, right, and the history that comes along with those events. And I think it really enriches your faith and makes you, a stronger Christian.
So true and so helpful. And I want to say you did a phenomenal job just with the film. I know I've already told you, but you've also sacrificed a lot of time, resources for the last 5 years,
5 years. Yeah. Well, working for about 4, but
and making this your center project. So I greatly appreciate it. I know Don does. Your time, your sacrifice, and you produce excellent, superior work that people are like, man, this got to be on Netflix or HBO. Like
we're trying to get there.
It's the same qualities.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, because we couldn't have done this film without you.
No.
And you were the heartbeat of it. So
yeah, no, thank y'all.
Shout out to you.
Thank y'all. I'm glad it was a team effort. Like you said. And I watched, Don's interview, you and Don's interview, which was fantastic. And he talked about, how he did wear a lot of hats, which he certainly did. Like in fact, I remember when we had 20 scholars, right? And so you're talking about 15 hours of footage, right? And Don took, all those interviews and kind of categorized them, right? And, so if somebody talked about Council of Nicaea, okay, well, these 3 people talked about the Council of Nicaea, and here's where it was, right? And so I just remember being so grateful that he did that. And I took all of those interviews. I knew that if I was going to be able to edit it, right, and put this movie together, I was going to have to, be intimate with this information, right? So I actually took all of the interviews, made them into MP3s, and I would listen to those MP3s on my way to work, on my way back home from work.
Wow.
Jogging, outside exercising, like just all day. I would listen to them over and over and over again. And what began to happen was I began to, I wouldn't say memorize, but I became very familiar with it, right? So as soon as I heard somebody say this, I'm like, oh, this person said that, right? And so, that was how we began to kind of cut the movie together. And like I said, be intimately tied to that information. So, it was a long journey, but
wow, I didn't know you did that. That's a level of commitment that I don't think most directors have. So, so that that is amazing. That you
I had to put the
probably
music.
know it verbatim.
I know a lot of it. Yeah, that's for sure.
And shout out, like you said, to Don for chopping that up, because I don't have the attention span to do that. But, shout out to him for doing that.
Right.
Chris, how can they get in contact with you? I'm sure soon, as the movie continues to stretch far and wide, you're going to get many calls to direct other projects and to produce other projects. But how can people reach you? What's your website and your social media?
So the website is crossculturestudios.com. And then it's Cross Culture Studios on social media. So Facebook, Instagram, still working on the others, but Facebook and Instagram at Cross Culture Studios. And you can stay up to speed with all the work that's coming out, whether it's, like I said, music videos, short films, or wanting to work together. So just reach out. Love to have a talk.
Awesome. Y'all definitely hit up Chris if y'all want y'all film to look like Unspoken.
Right.
Don't hit up me, because it won't look like
no,
that.
we're going to hit up you to produce it.
I don't know. I don't have his skill. I don't have the skill set.
We're going to call you.
But, well, thank you for watching another episode of the Jude 3 Project podcast. Remember, you could watch all our podcasts on our YouTube channel, subscribe on wherever you stream your favorite podcasts. Remember, we have our curriculums, Courageous Conversation Through Eyes of Color, and also we have the Unspoken curriculum under DLC Media that goes along with the film Unspoken, that you could get also at unspokenmovie.com. You could get the Jude 3 curriculums at jude3project.org. You could become a monthly supporter at jude3project.org/donate. We have merch. Remember, Courageous Conversations, the conference, September 2nd and 3rd in Washington, D.C. Scholar and the Skeptic. You don't want to miss it. Remember, here at the Jude 3 Project, we're helping you to know what you believe and why you believe it. Until next time, grace and peace, and God bless.